Hello, friends. Welcome to Alive and Thriving. My name is Jessica. I am your host. I have a story to share with you today. This is a really personal story. So, the last week or so, as I sit down to record this, I have been presenting. I have been running my free masterclass, which was from stuck to six figures. And at the beginning of this masterclass, I shared a little bit about my business journey. And my beautiful VA, she's created this timeline of all of the experience that I've had, not only in my own business, but also in business as well. Um, and in management positions and leadership positions and all of these things. And I realized as I was sharing a story, particularly around one I've touched on before around an event business in 2013, but it occurred to me that I've never actually shared with you guys the lessons. Actually, first of all, I've never actually stopped to really reflect on the lessons that I have taken from each of these areas of my life and from my business experiences. And I'm not just talking about my skills, because obviously we know we can all do that. We can look at the skill sets that we've taken from each role. And that's something that we do at Embodied Entrepreneur in that program is that we look at what makes you unique, and what makes you unique is a combination of who you are, your personality, your energy, your life experiences, your skill sets. And I can look at each job and I can understand the skills that I've taken away from it. But I never really actually paused to reflect on the lessons that I had taken away from these roles, particularly about myself and the things that are now just so much falling into place. And yeah, so I wanted to actually share these with you today. And I really would encourage you, no matter what your experience is, whether it be in your own business or in previous employment, to do a similar exercise because you will get to see how far you have grown. You will get to see how far you have come as a person. You will get to see repeated lessons that keep coming up, hoping like, come on, it's time to learn me now. You need to learn these lessons. You will see those. You'll be able to reflect on those. And it was a really powerful exercise for me. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. Just before I get into this episode, I need to let you know that applications for the Transcendence Mastermind are currently being taken. We have just, as I record this, 11 spots to offer for this round of applications. There is a significant price increase coming into effect on the 30th of June. So right now, you can join the mastermind for 2023 pricing. The reason it is going up significantly from the 1st of July is because over the last 7 months that this container has been active, the resources and the additional support, we have a whole nother mentor in there. We have a whole portal now full of past resources, and those are invaluable. They are so invaluable. So if you are a coach or a healer or somebody who works within the energy of other people, you're a soul-led service provider and you are wanting to move yourself off your next edge of expansion, you are wanting to grow both yourself and your business because this is the container that has the capacity to hold both. We merge our alternative therapies with strengths-led business, with strategy, with human design support. You get me, you get Annalise Warren, who is our business strategist. She is just phenomenal. And you get Tegan Parkinson, who is also a bonus support. She is there as our human design expert to help you navigate that area of life and business. If that is something you choose to do, you don't have to. And if you are a human design coach, you're like, oh, I'm not going to come into that space because I am a human design coach. That is not our sole focus. That is a bonus resource. She comes in for those who want that help and navigation. And you know what? It's always good, actually, I think, to get an external lens and an external perception on where you're at anyway. So that was just a quick note. If you're listening, you're like, oh, I don't know if I need this. I already have knowledge in human design and things like that. I'm not here to teach it to you, and neither is Tegan. We're here to help you best utilize your strengths to grow your business and to live a life of alignment if you choose to use that pathway. Annalise comes in our Slack channel and our hot seat calls, and she is so amazingly strategy focused. You could pretty much ask her anything. And if she doesn't know the answer, she has a whole team behind her to support her. So between my experience and the space that I hold and my strengths-led strategy approach and Annalise and Tegan, you are so deeply supported. And not only that, but this is a mastermind. So you guys actually support each other as well. So we don't have to do business alone just because we're solopreneurs. And we certainly don't have to struggle. You can come into the mastermind and I want you to imagine, what would this mean to you if you were stuck? If you were on a real, say, a low, if you were struggling at home, if you were struggling with your mindset, if you were just feeling stuck with what your next step in your business is, and you didn't have to wait for a call, you didn't have to wait for a monthly coaching call, you could come into a Slack channel and you could type or you could voice and say, hey, this is what's going on for me. And maybe someone pops in and says, oh, hey, I've done that before. Here's the resource that I used. Or someone comes in and says, oh, I know how to do that. Here's a Loom video. Or someone comes in and says, I've been through something similar. Here is how I navigated this. You can actually get unstuck really quickly. This is designed to not only hold you deeply, but accelerate your business. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in my experience when I get down to my more recent business. So if you are wanting to come into the mastermind, there is currently 3 ways you can do that. You can choose to join right now. You can join us. You can literally start today and come to our call on Thursday. You can come in by paying a deposit and secure your seat and choose a start date by the end of June. There's 2 ways. There are 2 ways you can come in. You can also choose between the mastermind experience and an upgraded experience where you get the whole mastermind experience with all the bonuses, with all of the inclusions. It's over $25,000 worth of value in terms of support, and it's over $12,000 in bonus support. So it is a lot of value and nowhere near that in terms of price. So you can come in, you can have that experience, or you can choose to upgrade and have 10 monthly one-on-ones with me to really hone in and accelerate that as well. So those are the options to come into the mastermind. If the places fill up, then you'll go on a wait list. So if you have been thinking about it, if you have been manifesting a mastermind, if you know that you are ready for your next level of support, if you've been thinking, oh, maybe I need a mindset coach, oh, but I actually need to do some personal development in terms of inner healing, or I don't know what to do to build a lead magnet, or I need to set up websites, or I need to create funnels, or I need to build programs, and you're trying to work out what to prioritize first. This is the container that can hold space for all of it. Okay, so you don't actually need to be like, oh, should I employ a strategist? Should I employ a mindset coach? Should I employ a therapist? What should I be doing? Who should I be working with? We can support you through all of it, which is really cool. So let's get into today's episode. I'm really excited to share these lessons with you guys.
You're listening to Alive and Thriving with Jessica Reed, the podcast that's all about empowering you to achieve optimal wellness and success through self-care, holistic practices, and raw conversations. Jessica and her expert guests are here to share powerful insights and strategies to help you overcome stress and anxiety, take charge of your life, and thrive in life and in business. Grab a cuppa and let's dive in.
I feel like I was born with this entrepreneurial gene. I don't know if that's a thing, but my dad had his own business and I've always witnessed that. I think my grandma as well. Like, it's always been around me, but there's always been something inside of me. And whether it be directly related to entrepreneurship or whether it be also this creative visionary inside of me, there has always just been this part of me that has always been drawn to be creating and to be doing and to be leading, which if you listen now, I've shifted more into that role model as I embrace my human design, but I always saw it as leadership then. And I always knew that wherever I was going, I was taking people with me. And I never truly understood how magnetic my energy actually truly was until I actually reflect back on not just my business now, but I reflect back on all of this past experience that I've had. And I'm going to start at 12 years old, although I'm pretty sure that these things, like, I remember having my friends over when I was younger and I would be writing all of these like plays and things, and I'd have the camera out and I'd be directing everybody around. And basically, it was my creations coming to life. That's how I see this. It was my creations coming to life. And that started literally before 12. When I was 12 years old, I begged my mum to get a Nutrimetics account. Our neighbor a few doors down, she was a Nutrimetics consultant, and I didn't just want to buy the stuff. I didn't really care too much about the face washes and the, what do you call it? I'm sure they still have it, the Nutri-Rich oil and all of those things. I thought the products were great, yes. But I was just intrigued by like this business and by the parties. I, at 12 years old, was running my own Nutrimetics workshops, and I was going with my neighbor out to the trainings. I'm pretty sure the lady that I learned from, the main lady, I'm pretty sure she is still in business there. And I was doing all of this right from the age of 12. And when I look back and I think, okay, what did this sort of teach me about myself and really teach me that I have brought with me into life now and into business now? I think about the fact that this, first of all, it gave me confidence. It really gave me so much confidence within myself to be able to stand up and celebrate myself. I remember being able to celebrate myself at that age and feel pride in what I was doing and feel pride. Like I would be able to stand up and be like, I had a party and I sold this amount of things. And it was a really great feeling. And I also remember, I know that it had a really big impact on teaching me how to sell. And that is something that I actually thought to myself a couple of months ago. I was like, I've never been taught as such how to sell things, but I seem to be able to very naturally talk about my offerings. And I genuinely don't believe that I'm selling when I do. Like even at the introduction, when I was talking to you about the mastermind, I have so much love for that container. I know how transformative that space is. I know how happy and satisfied the women inside the container are. I know how satisfied I am showing up to running it. And so for me to tell you about this, I literally just see this as you either take it if it's something that resonates with me or you don't. And if I follow you up because you have shown interest, I'm literally just circling back until you close the loop, not because I have these sales intentions. And I think I'll talk about money and that desperation. I need people to buy a thing energy later. I don't have that when I talk about this. And I didn't have that then when I was 12, because at that age, it wasn't about how much money I made, being able to cover my bills. It wasn't about out earning my past job or contributing to the house. It's like, it wasn't about that. It was about me actually fulfilling this creative urge that I had within inside of me. And yeah, so I know that it definitely contributed though in teaching me how to naturally sell. It contributed in teaching me how to listen to what people's needs are and then be like, okay, we have this product or this thing will definitely actually help you. Or, oh no, sorry, we don't have anything like that. Like it really taught me how to understand people's needs, and yeah, it gave me this confidence. So when I think about that and I think about like me being 12 and doing all of this, like what did it teach me? It actually taught me so much about myself even then that I'm only just realizing now as I come into my 36th year of living. So I'm going to move to when I was 14 years old. When I was 14, and this isn't directly business, but again, I see it still from that space of creating and me bringing ideas into reality and me being really resourceful in being able to make that happen. When I look at this particular story, oh gosh, my poor mum. Gosh, she did a lot for me. When I look at this particular story though, I actually really, and it's only really as I say this now, I really can see. I look at the NutriMedics, I look at this, I look at everything coming up, and I never was taught how to do these things, but I've always figured it out. And there is something inside of me that I really realized, and in this particular story I'm about to share with you, that it's only really sunk in and hit home again recently. And that is that when I decide that I'm going to do something, it happens. I think it's my defined ego center in my human design. If I decide something is going to happen, I always find a way. If I genuinely have that response, if I genuinely am ready to do something, I will always find a way to do it. And in my mind, there's just no other option, which can lead to a little bit of extra disappointment if things don't work out. But for the majority of time, they have worked out. And if they haven't to the level I was expecting, it's because it was my expectations that were off. So when I was 14 years old, I wrote and choreographed and produced a musical. And I had a lot of my dance friends who came and participated in it. I recruited people from school. I recruited people from the boys' school that we knew as well. So I was at an all-girls school. And my mum was a teacher. And so I asked her if she would find a way for us to use their school hall for rehearsals. And we did that for months. Every second Sunday for months, I hosted these rehearsals. I ran them. I wrote the musical. I choreographed most of the choreography. I had some friends who helped with some of that as well. Organized the costumes, the backs, like the props, like every single aspect. And then I sold tickets. I sold 200 tickets at $5 a ticket to this musical. Now, again, it wasn't for profit. It wasn't about the money, because I'm pretty sure from memory, the way that we were able to use the school hall was if it became like a PNC fundraiser. I'm fairly certain that's what happened. So we gave them the money. We covered the costs and we gave them the money. And so again, it wasn't about that because I was 14 years old. This was about me having these visions, and which often just come inspired by music, and bringing them into life. And like, I look back on that and I'm like, that's actually a really big deal. Like, no, yes, I went on to do the naughty teenager things after that. But at that point in time, like that is a really big deal for me to bring those people together and to make that happen. It was like I decided it was going to happen and it did. And that is my biggest lesson from that experience, is that I decided that something was going to happen. And it really taught me that if I back myself, that it can and it will happen. And I had been a dancer for a long time and I had been a part of a lot of productions, but I had never been in that director's role. I had never brought everything together. And it just seemed like I learned about myself that I can just figure it out. And what I love about this is that I'm really seeing now that this is that manifesting generator in me. This is the part of me that's, so I'm going to do it messy. I'm just going to get it done. And then I'm going to circle back and I'm going to refine the details afterwards. But it doesn't matter if I don't know how to start. I'm just going to start and I'm just going to do it. And we're going to figure it all out along the way. And I've been doing that since I was a child. So seeing these lessons that I understand about myself now and understanding how they played out then is just really amazing. Then I start to look at, as I move forward, some of you will have heard from me that when I was 16, I decided to leave school. And the only thing I can really say to you in terms of why, because I was really smart, I had great grades, there was just something in me that needed to pivot. And I decided I wasn't going back, and I don't even remember exactly anything triggering it. I look at it back and I'm like, okay, I decided I wasn't going back and I didn't. I decided I was going to work and I did. And I did. I did a 2 days of a hairdressing apprenticeship, decided that wasn't for me. And then I went into a bistro, and after working in there only for a couple of months, I was in this management position. So at 16, I started learning about my ability to actually lead a team, to direct people, which I already had learned from my musical, but I learned so many things, my capacity to be able to tolerate behavior that I didn't agree with as well. There was a lot of that. My ability to be able to pick up on things like payroll and ordering, and then the chef, like the cook's away, so then I would step into that space, or someone like my ability to adapt into different roles and to learn a holistic picture of a business. That was really evident to me when I look at what did I learn about myself in that time. I learned so much about myself. I also learned to let go of the shame that I had that I didn't finish year 12, because I have gone on to do so many different certifications. It was only when I was 18 that I did a certification. I think it was a Cert 4 in property. I can't quite remember, and I did a certification in, oh, what is it? I forget what it was now exactly, but it was something around training because I was dance teaching. There's all these things that I did and I learned along the way. And I had so much shame for so long that I just didn't finish that part of my education. Now I get to look at it and I'm like, I actually see that part of me that I always said was flaky, that didn't finish things, that would run away from things. I wasn't running away. And you know what? If I had not been in that bistro business when I was at that age of 16, I would not have met my then boyfriend, my now life partner. And I say that with a little bit of resentment because no, we're not married. But we have 2 beautiful kids. We have 2 businesses. We have 2 dogs. We have 2 houses. 2 seems to be the magic number for now. All of these things have happened. And we had times where we separated for a little while and we came back together. Never really for more than 6 months did we separate properly. But when I look back at that though, had I not been in that place, navigating life in a way that felt good for me, I lived in a bus at that point in time. Like, you might giggle. Let go of all perceptions here. My family lived on a farm. And so for me to work the nights that I needed to work and be at the lunch shifts that I needed to be at and the early morning for prep, I needed to be close. And so I lived in a bus not far back from the bistro. And it was a fully fitted out bus and I was 16 years old. So you can imagine how amazing that was for me. Like, at a home, living alone in a fully decked out bus. Like, I learned so much about myself. And when I actually then not just think about the bistro job, but I actually look at the fact that whole job led to that experience of me really growing up, of me learning to take care of myself, understanding that I had to pay bills and things like that at that point in time. Like, I learned life lessons because I had no choice but to look after myself. I had to turn up to my job. I had to pay for my power. I had to pay for my rent or whatever it was to stay there. I had to do all of that. I had to run team. I had to do all of these things. And that was all just at 16 years old. And so I guess, yeah, when I actually reflect back on that, there is so much that I learned about myself more than just outside of the job. But I actually learned just how capable I am of doing big, hard things, which is amazing when I think about how many years I was crippled with anxiety, and going to the shops felt hard. But I was 16. Oh my God, I actually feel emotional because I think about how long I lost myself for. I've just jumped like a whole heap ahead in the timeline here. I think about how long I lost myself for. And even now, when I have little bits of anxiety creep up for me, I've just committed to going to Bali in August with my mentor for a retreat, leaving my kids into a different leaving my kids being in a different country for a week. I've never done that before. But I have these little bits of anxiety about doing these grown up things. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been grown upping since I was a child. With the support of my parents, I didn't leave home because I had to. I did it because I really wanted to. Wow, I don't think I've ever actually cried on here before. This is just a little moment. Sorry, guys. This little piece of reality that's just dropping in for me as I speak, that these little things that I experience now that pop up, even in my day to day, that I manage. But we all have a dysregulated nervous system from time to time. And these little things that are popping up in my day to day that I manage, that was never me. I was never an anxious person. I was the 16-year-old who left home and looked after herself and had the best time doing it and kicked ass doing it too. I was a 14-year-old who literally brought people together and ran rehearsals and wrote choreographed and directed a musical, and the 12-year-old who chopped people's houses for their new dramatics parties. And yet I got so anxious for so long about walking into a shopping centre. How was some fluorescent lighting might make me feel like. Traveling because the lights in the, what do you call it, airport would make me feel shit. Yeah, just this little realization, guys. Right, I'm going to get back on track. So from there, my next sort of business venture, I ended up as working in real estate. There came a time from the bistro where I was like, I needed like a proper job, and as in a full-time job. I needed a higher income. I was renting. It was time. I told myself it was time that I got, quote unquote, a prop. And so I did. I went in, I was a receptionist in this real estate agency. And then not long after that, I became property manager. And I did that for about 8 years. And this is this point in time of my life where I just lost myself. I enjoyed the job whilst I enjoyed it. And then when I stopped enjoying it, there was a lot of elements to it that I didn't enjoy. I didn't like being the person who had to evict somebody from their home. I didn't like being the person turning up to the tenancy courts and ringing people about owing money, and then ringing landlords who also had to pay their mortgages to negotiate things. And everyone was so emotionally attached because I just saw it then as because it's at home and it's their money. And now I see it as because we've all put so much emphasis on money and we put money on such a pedestal. It was a stressful job. And I learned so much about myself though during that time. But during that time too, I also wasn't fully me. I was not fully me, and I suppressed these parts of me that just really wanted to shine, and I didn't know how to let them, because it was almost like the magic that I had carried within me. I just decided to let it go and get a normal job, be a normal person. And I struggled for those 8 years. I struggled, and that led to me struggling personally as well. Like I said, my partner and I, we were out and then in and then out and then in, and there was just so many different things that went on, and that part of my life actually felt quite tough, very misaligned. When I left that job, I left at 25 because I wanted to start my own business. I had that creative, that urge that I always knew I wanted my own business again. And so I did. I left and I created a business called Dynamic Events, and I loved it. I was so proud of everything that I created. And again, I was creating. So I wasn't the person who just waited around for someone to come and book a birthday party or a wedding or something. And I did do a few of those to get some cash flow into the business. But I was creating. It's like, okay, what is the launch event we're going to do? We're going to do a charity launch event. And I put together a bachelor auction for the Heart Foundation. We raised over $8,000 in that evening. that was significant to me because my dad had a heart attack at the age of 44, just a few years before that, which he survived. That's a whole nother trauma that was living in my body for a long time. So, yeah, so I've created this event and I've created this business literally inspired by things like I would have a song play like on the radio, and that song would then get in my head. My body would start moving and I would be like, yes, I would close my eyes and be like, yes, this is what this is going to look like. This is who's going to MC this event. This is how the auction's going to go. These are the performers that we need. Like, it's amazing how my brain can do that. And again, I stopped letting it do that for a long time. And this connection to that in 2013, I guess actually is something that has really taught me, now that I reflect back on that, just how important it is to connect back into that. As I say that, last night, I had these headphones on, I was singing and dancing around my kitchen, and I actually had these moments of like things dropping in for me until my 4-year-old cried because she didn't like my singing. She was, stop, Mum, stop. But it's that reinforcement of actually, this is how I really connect into something that is bigger. And I had forgotten that about myself. And maybe I didn't even really know that too much about myself at that point in time. So this business taught me so much because first year I created an event called the Get Active Expo. It was Canberra's only health and wellness. I guess a little bit like the Fit Expos they have in Sydney. There was nothing like that in Canberra at that point in time. So my first year brought in around 100 exhibitors and around 2,000 people through the gate, which I thought was amazing. First year, great. Second year, tried to increase sponsorships. My money mindset really came in. I was negotiated down on all the stalls. Like, I'm talking, I was charging like $300 for a 3x3 stall, fully fitted out with electricity. Like, if you are a stall holder, if you have a business and you go to markets and you go to stalls, you know that if you go to one of those indoor markets and they have the fully fitted out with your banner across the top and everything, like, you are not paying $300. You are paying in the thousands. I had a space set up outside as well, which was more for, it was a more affordable space. So it was more for not-for-profits and other sporting events, sporting teams and things who also negotiated me down. I had people trading performances to stalls and all of these things that I had no concept of my money mindset at that point in time. This second year in, I went with my gut, or maybe it was my head, actually. I think it was more my head. I went with my head and I brought in a celebrity trainer who's also a speaker. And despite all of the marketing that we did, which by the way was a significant amount on TV, radio, magazines, which back then is the way to was the way to market, much more so than the online space. I did all the right things, but her talk did not sell. All the books that we brought in for that talk did not sell. I ended up losing a really significant, well, it's really significant for me back then, amount of money. So at 26, I lost $40,000 on that event, and not because no one came through the gate. And it's funny, I think about my money mindset and I think about these lessons and the resilience that I now have from this event. Because the shame, and I shared this story from Stuck to Six Figures Masterclass the other week, the shame that I carried from that, from losing the money, where I then decided that I'd failed, that I shouldn't be running a business, that I was no good, that everybody must have known that I was failed, that I had failed, who was I to bring people back in, all of these things, like I wore that in my heart and across my face for years and years. So much so that I ghosted the business. Like, I completely brought in all of my ex relationship strategies. I ghosted it. Like, see you later. I'm done. Not even going to explain why. I'm just going to disappear. And that's what I did. I disappeared under this blanket of shame. So stuck in this shame. I remember there was maybe like 15 minutes where I had to be at the gate taking tickets and somebody had to go to the bathroom. And there was a family that came in, and to come into this event, I think first year it was $5 entry, second year it might have been $10 entry. And kids under 16 were just a gold coin donation. But then I had pensioners coming. I had this family and there was a pensioner, and she stood there and whinged about the fact that there was no pensioner discount to come in. My beautiful 90, or she's 90 now, so she would have been in her 80s then. My 80-year-old Nana happily gave me $10 and came in the gate. But this woman had this expectation that she should have had a discount, and so did the students coming in as well. And I remember that like living in my belly. I thought about this old lady, elderly woman. I'm sorry, that's disrespectful. I thought about this elderly woman for so long, and I felt so much shame and guilt that she was upset with me. She didn't know it was me, but she was upset with me that I had not had a student discount or a pension discount for a $10 exhibition that cost me nearly $200,000 to put together. So here's the thing. I carried that with me. And the lesson from that event that I've taken away about myself, I didn't learn until the earlier years of this business now, because I wouldn't allow myself to look at it. At that point in time, I thought all I had learned was that I was just not a good businesswoman and I shouldn't have done it, and that everyone knew that I had failed and everyone knew that I owed money, which I was very grateful for the help that I had to fix all of that. It ended up being I was going to say an easy fix. I had people who were able to support me, and I was then able to spend my next 18 months paying them back. But the fact is that I ran away from that business, and I fell pregnant with my first child, and I was vomiting all day. Oh my God, all day, every day for the whole pregnancy. And that made it easy to run away. That made it easy to be like, you know what, I'm just going to get a real person job again. I'm obviously not meant to do this. I'm going to get a real person job. So I did. So I went into school, which I was doing part-time alongside my business. So I went full-time in there, and I started this HR role, went on maternity leave, went back to school, HR, business management. And again, so many skills, so many amazing skills, multi-million-dollar budgets, a support team of 48 staff, putting together professional development, my capacity to cope and run a school being actually thrown into the business manager role that I was like, I'm not ready for this. All of these things that I've learned about myself from that and the skills that I brought in from that are so transferable into the work that I do now. And I do believe everything serves a purpose. That role enabled me to have maternity leave, where I ended up, and most of my story, maternity leave with my second child, where I was able to then learn, well, I fell into EFT, and then I ended up becoming a practitioner. If I hadn't had that maternity leave, would that have happened? I don't know, because I've taken the pathway I've taken. So there are all of these skills that I've taken from that job. And so I definitely, and so much that I learned about myself in terms of my capacity and my abilities to sit and hold space at a table, to run high level meetings, to do all of these things. Like I did that. And I did that whilst living in chronic panic disorder. I showed up to those meetings dissociated for years with my heart rate up at 180, wondering if I was going to faint every time I was waiting to speak. I did that, and I did that in the worst environment internally that I possibly could have done that in. So again, a lot of lessons taken away about my capacity and about who I am. But unfortunately, that whole period of time is where I started to learn. And that's why I got really emotional before when I was thinking about the woman who was just like, oh, I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to be the one to introduce this celebrity trainer. And I love speaking in front of people and let's share the MC role and let's bring the one who had no issue being seen or being heard or ever really experiencing anxiety, like just how much that really impacted me. Again, wouldn't even go to the shops and still get that hesitation sometimes if I'm in a migraine space. If I am in, which more now seem to be hormonal, but if I am in a migraine space, it's like, oh, I better not go into that kind of lighting. I better not do this because I know the fear in my body that I felt when I would feel anxious or panicked. So that period of time, I also lost myself again, like suppressing the parts of me that really wanted to come forward. So whilst I see the value and I see the skills and I see the lessons, I also had suppressed this part of me that really needed to shine. So then, as you guys know, I came into this Inspired Life Collective business. And I came into this business, I guess, and then there was another Arbonne business, by the way, alongside. So we've been in Arbonne twice, which I really feel like taught me, one of the biggest things that has taught me is, again, that selling is not icky. And it's taught me resilience because I know what some people think about network marketing. But I loved it because for me, it came from a real space of a real space of being genuine. It also really reaffirmed to me my magnetic skill set. My sales would happen if I was in a room with people, not if I was just contacting people over voice messages and asking them to buy things or if they needed to buy things or whatever. But it was like if I held a space for people, then my workshops would bring in significant sales. COVID obviously had a huge impact on that. We couldn't do face-to-face things. So that definitely threw me out of my comfort zone and more into an online space. Then when I really merged into Inspired Life Collective, as I said, I was forced to look at the lesson that I had taken from, not forced to, in order to be able to grow and move forward, I had to look at the lessons that came from the dynamic events business. And one of those majorly was that I actually had to process the emotions that I had suppressed. That shame wasn't mine to be feeling. That old woman's voice that made me feel so, because what I did is I started this business with that woman's voice in my head, with the people who complained and shamed me because I didn't have a pensioner discount or a student discount. And I was charging $50 a session. And I basically was like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't really have a student discount, but I guess I could do like your first session for $30 and we'll see how that goes. That was the mindset that I brought in. And so much of that was not only again my money mindset, but it was shame. Like so much of that was because of the shame that I was feeling and that I hadn't processed it all. And I hadn't let it go. Like I could not allow myself, because with the expos, I had this expectation that I was going to earn a certain amount of money. And when I didn't, and when I actually went into a loss, then I just questioned, like, for someone who had always decided something was going to happen and then it didn't in the way that I told myself that it would, I questioned everything about myself. I was like, oh, I can't make money. I can't barely cover costs. All of these stories that I had to work through with my money mindset and that I have worked through with my money mindset. So dynamic events enlightened me to a whole money mindset story. It taught me to get help early. So in my second year, I had a virtual assistant and she was doing a lot of the sponsorship calls for me. I had help a lot earlier on. So in the first year, all I had was the team on the day. This time round, I had help a lot earlier on. I wasn't the one to pack all of the first 200 people that come through the gate got a gift bag. I wasn't the one to pack all of those bags. I wasn't the one to put the stickers on all those goddamn bags. Like, it wasn't just me. So I learned actually the value of having help early on in your business, even when you're not making any money. It did reinforce when I actually look back on it now and look back at what I created, knowing that I created that event from scratch, that I started something that felt really good for me, that I was really proud of. And literally, it was just that shame that was blocking me from feeling that pride. Like, I could see how I can be that person who can do something messy and then circle back to fix it. And that's actually okay. That is a part of how I learn. And I've done that in this business as well. I've learned more in this business about my unique energy and the way that I uniquely hold space for people, and the fact that in order to really connect with people, like, I have to be myself. I have to be sharing these kinds of stories. I have to show that I am a real person. I have to be able to embrace the parts of me that maybe previously have felt shame, or that decided that I was flaky or uneducated, or, a failure, or well, I don't know, all of these other stories that I had. Like, I've had to embrace these parts of me, the parts of me that have always, like, I have been manifesting longer than I can remember. And yet it wasn't something that was commonly spoken about. And it was a part of me that, I'll say, part of me, that energetic part of me, like, that was a part I hid for a really long time. And I spoke about that a lot in the episode a few weeks ago about being authentic. Like, that was a part of me that I hid away from. I have learned to think about time and money differently, about productivity differently, about the way that our whole working world works differently. I have thought, and I shared even something recently, like this year, Mondays are off for me. Mondays are off because I was in this like habit of feeling anxious and stressed every Monday morning because of how things used to be. And it was just a pattern that lived in my body. And so I take Mondays off now. That's just a day where I get to do life things, have my appointments, spend with Amelia. So I get to think about time differently, about money differently, about productivity, about business, about entrepreneurship differently. I've learned that it is better for me to work within my strength than try and be the person to do everything. So I outsource everything I can. As much as I can, I outsource. I have people who do my offer pages. I have people who do the coding in that I need. I have people who put things into my emails for me. I have people who create my graphics. I have people who go and do the editing on this podcast and then upload it and send you the email to say, hey, it's live. I write them. I obviously turn up and I do the content and I do the things because you need to connect with me, and that's why I'm here, right? But I've learned that trying to do all the things, even though I'm the person who, again, from the very beginning was like, I can do all the things. I can spread myself thinly. I am capable of doing the website. I'm capable of editing the podcast. I'm capable of doing the tech background zapping and all of those things. Like, I'm capable of doing those things. But I have really, truly learned that I don't need to be. And that I actually get to show up in a way that is so beautifully aligned for me in my zone of genius, my zone of excellence. I get to show up in that space, and that is how I propel my business forward. I've learned that I am worthy of charging money. Like, I am making big transformations in people's world, or facilitating, holding space for big transformations. I have invested so much in my growth. Just because I did not finish year 12 does not mean that I have not invested now close to $80,000 in my business learning from various mentors, not just one way, from various places, people who are doing what I want to be doing, people who've already done it, people who have learned lessons that I need to learn or that I need to avoid learning. And I've also learned about myself that I get to embrace my mistakes. And that the fact that I'm making them is actually so aligned with who that I am. The fact that I get to pivot is so aligned with who I am. I have learned that I am not less than other people who have particular qualifications that I used to put up on a pedestal. I am not less than. I am unique and I offer something completely different. I'm not flaky. I didn't fail. I've learned so much about myself. And you know what? This is just the beginning of this business journey. This is just the beginning. And I cannot wait to continue to learn more. And I think I'm going to really reflect or make an effort. I think that's maybe end of year or end of financial year, or just when I remember to go back and reflect on not just, we look at the learnings, what did I do, what worked well, what didn't work well, but who are you? Who have you become? And when you look at that, oh, I feel emotional again. Because like my business journey from the Nutrimedics and letterbox dropping to producing the musical, managing a bistro, the Arbonne business back in 2010, Dynamic Events in 2013. My partner and I have a family roofing company. It's still running. You know, I had to throw myself in the deep end with that too, because I've always run business under sole tradership. I had Dynamic Events started off as partnership. I chose to continue it on. So I look at all of the things that I have learned from all of these businesses. Like we have employees, payroll, excuse me. Sorry, little cough, if you could hear that. Ebbs and flows. Like, how do I handle the ebbs and flows? I know now that I'm the person who understands that. I understand how to listen to my body in my business. I understand how I show up to stressful situations, how I handle those. So there is so much to learn about yourself if you reflect back on these things. I'm going to leave it there. And I would love to know if this story, this journey, has inspired you at all. And if it has, please come onto Instagram and let me know. And if you are thinking about joining the Transcendence Mastermind, don't be like me in the very beginning of my business and let your head get completely in the way. When I joined my first mastermind in 2022, my second year in business, I was making no money and I didn't know how I was going to pay for a month. I had no idea at all. And I'm not saying go and put yourself into an awful financial position. I'm not saying that. But when I reflect back on that, and I'm still in that container, and as I said, I've invested in others as well. And I look back on, okay, $80,000 in learning and learning how to accelerate my business. I would not be here holding space for others to be doing the same if I had not done that. I do not believe that I would be fully booked in my private practice had I not done that. I think I would have gone off on a million different journeys, be promoting 5,000 offers and still sitting in the shame and the money stories from my event business had I not had invested in this mastermind. One of my ladies, because we all have a gap and we all have a gain. And if we want to focus on the gap, that's fine. But remember, what you focus on is where your energy flows. And one of my ladies said to me the other week, actually, I think it might have been in a testimonial she gave me. She said, I honestly think, because she was newer in business, she said, I honestly think that I would still be trying to figure out what to do after my logo and website if I had not joined this mastermind. And she has offers. Like, she has strategy in place. She has all of these amazing things within her business now. So you just never know. You just never know where you will end up if you allow yourself to invest in yourself and in your business. And the Transcendence Mastermind container is a really special place to do that. Right? Have an amazing day.
Wow, what a journey it's been today. We are so grateful for each and every one of you who tuned in to Alive and Thriving. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help us keep growing, please consider subscribing and leaving a review on your favourite platform. It's a simple but powerful way to support a small business like ours to continue to make an impact.